Hey friends, Big Mouth Season 5 dropped. I know tons of you hate it, but I don't care. I think the monster lore is cool. Though, I'm not going to do a traditional review this year, I do still want to jump back into these monster breakdowns we've done for the past 3 seasons, and there's a lot to cover in Season 5. Honestly, this will end up covering a lot of plot points in Season 5 anyways, so you'll still get some of my thoughts on the new season as a whole. So, spoilers ahead for the entire 5th season of Big Mouth. First, as usual, we're going to run through all of the hormone monsters that we've been introduced to previously, who were once again present in Season 5. As always, we got plenty of the hormone monsters this year, which is obviously to be expected. Maury worked with Andrew and Matthew, Connie worked with Jesse, Mona worked with Missy, and Rick was back once again featured prominently with Nick, a development I don't love. There were more hormone monsters introduced this season as well. We learned that Nick's sister Leah has a hormone monster named Bonnie, who is Connie's twin sister. But no, they aren't exactly alike.
I prefer hormone monster. You don't call a female doctor a doctress.
Oh, I most certainly do.
They also introduced Simon Sex, another hormone monster who is just friends with Maury and isn't shown to be working with any of the characters in this season directly, though he does give advice still. He's played by and designed after Jermaine Clement of Flight of the Conchords.
Now go, Andrew. Show those boys that even though society doesn't want them to be vulnerable, tenderness can be very powerful.
We also saw pretty much every prominent emotion monster that had been featured in previous seasons, mainly in one specific Jessie sequence. Concerned that Missy now hates her, all of Jessie's emotions sort of bombard her at once. First, Tito the Anxiety Mosquito from Season 4, then the Shame Wizard, who was mostly in Season 2, then the Depression Kitty, and of course Connie, and one of our new monsters, the Love Bug. I like this portrayal of overwhelming emotion because so many of these things can go hand in hand. We've seen monsters work together before, but this is the first time we've seen so many at once, just completely overwhelming a character. As I mentioned, the big new monsters featured this season are the Love Bugs, and also the Hate Worms, which actually turned out to be the same monsters in an interesting twist. They go through a metamorphosis depending on the feelings of the character they're attached to. We're initially introduced to Walter Las Palmas and Sonia Poinsettia. Walter is dispatched to Nick, who is falling for Jesse, while Sonia is dispatched to Jesse, who is falling for Allie this year. They actually present the Love Bugs as being capable of portraying both romantic love and platonic love as well, which I think is a nice distinction. The Love Bugs, much like all of these monsters, help guide the characters through the world of love for better and worse. Nick is encouraged by Walter to confess his love for Jesse with a big grand gesture, which goes very poorly, as you might expect.
Oh, I love your ponytail and your pouty frown.
Connie, what do I do?
Nick's persistence and inability to take a hint actually lead him down a hate-filled road, and we see Walter transform from a love bug into a hate worm. Missy is also filled with hate and resentment this year, mostly focused on Jesse, who stole her idea to get rid of the school mascot and was a real bitch towards Missy in general. Missy's hate worm is Rochelle, and we see through a fun musical sequence how hate worms grow into basically serpents/snakes as the hate itself grows. We're even shown how this process is basically dictated by the human in question. There's a sequence where Jessie is contemplating whether or not she truly hates Nick for how he was treating her, and Sonia seems prepared to transform into a hate worm. Jessie decides she doesn't hate Nick, and Sonia remains a love bug. By the end of the season, after Jessie apologizes, Missy overcomes her hate-filled spiral, and Rochelle transforms into a love bug in a pretty wild sequence. It's kind of gross, but also kind of cool. Nick's hate this season honestly starts driving him straight into incel territory, complaining that girls only like assholes, and all of that kind of shitty rhetoric, but fortunately, he too overcomes his spiral by the end of the season, and Walter returns to his love bug form. I think it's also probably a safe bet to say that the main character we saw in the Human Resources spin-off teaser from a couple years back is also a love bug. Just based on the design, they look really similar. We got a brief glimpse of the Gratitoad from Season 4 in the Thanksgiving episode, and there's also actually a very prominent episode featuring Season 2's major monster, the Shame Wizard. This one has a major focus on body image, putting body shaming at the forefront of the discourse. I actually said last year that I was hoping they would use the Shame Wizard more prominently because shame is such a big and important emotion, and felt like something they should bring up given the storylines of Big Mouth, and this season they actually delivered on this. I actually really like the detail that the hate worms basically help the characters overwhelm and drown out the Shame Wizard, which is a really smart observation. So often people who are filled to the brim with hate do truly shameful and embarrassing things, but their hate blinds them to how embarrassing they end up looking. In fact, Sonia at one point even calls in the shame wizard because she recognized that Jessie needed to feel shame about how she treated Missy, another really smart way to portray this emotional baggage and how the monster characters can work together. Before we get to the return to the human resources world, there were a few other sort of hard to classify monsters in the season that I figured were worth mentioning. In the episode Green-Eyed Monster, Jessie and Samira's jealousy turns them into giant Hulk monsters and they fight, kind of similar to what we saw in season 3's Supermouth. Jessie also had a weird anxiety vision about her father starting a new family that showed off this creepy-ass cheese baby monster. Maury also mentions a few important monsters from the 90s.
It's me, the Juice, Buttafuoco, Galooly, all the 90s monsters. Steven Seagal looks like shit.
These obviously aren't the same types of monsters, but we all know they are monsters. Alright, let's jump into the big return to human resources, which revealed tons of new background monsters and also a ton of new details about how the human resources world works. We first see it in episode 3 when introduced to the love bugs. One brand new detail is that now the human resources world has the Earth itself in the skyline and background. This was not the case in Season 2's introduction to the monster dimension, and it also wasn't the case in the teaser trailer for the Human Resources spin-off that I expect will be coming next year. That teaser showed a lot of different planet-like objects in the sky rather than the Earth itself. In episode 3, we see a handful of other hormone monsters and other types of workers, and they mention another love bug, Emmy, by name. Emmy also mentions another type of monster.
Well, you look chipper this morning.
I met a gremlin on the train, and we're getting Negronis later.
And in the season finale, we see a few different gremlins in human resources as well. Previously, we saw the Fuck Gremlin, but that was showcased in the sort of spin-off Cafeteria Girls, which featured the actresses from Pen 15, and was portrayed as basically their version of the hormone monsters. So I don't know if we should expect these gremlins to be Fuck Gremlins or later revealed to be something else. We see 2 new departments up close in the season finale. There's the Hate Division, which can be found in the Courtyard of Love and Hate, as well as the Complaints Department. The Hate Division features a ton of new monsters who seemingly all revolve around, would you guess it, hate. There's this floating toothy brain monster. This is where we see a couple gremlins. There's this like sort of different gremlin who has a weird nose and an eye patch. Okay, look, a lot of these just kind of look like gremlins. I don't know how else to describe them. There's also this little mustachioed Furby guy. There's this spooky pale ceiling crawly monster that looks like it came out of Resident Evil, a green Cyclops archer, a gooey eyeball guy, and also literally Adolf Hitler. Although my absolute favorite is Bill Lumbergh. This is actually a character from the film Office Space portrayed by Gary Cole.
Hello, Peter. What's happening?
Though he actually originated in some animated shorts about the character Milton, who also appeared in Office Space. These characters were created by Mike Judge, who you may know as the creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. A fun nod to the character, who absolutely is a monster. If you haven't seen the movie, you should definitely give it a watch. When Nick first enters Human Resources, we see a few random monsters. There's this orange gooey guy who we've seen in the background before, a standard gremlin, an octopus lady, and of course a walking clump of noodles. Then we're introduced to the Complaints Department. Nick is brought there by this weird little pink, I want to say gremlin, but I guess he's more like a troll. Though he does have like a wiener flower on his head. At the Complaints Department, we see a bunch of background monsters we've seen before, and some we haven't. Pretty sure we've seen this orange-vested blue guy here, and this snail man we've definitely seen. I do not recognize the Yeti with glasses and bowler hat, though. There's this big pink sort of hippo-y lady here. There's this thing that looks like an old bug, a more boring Gumby-looking dude, and this blue and green guy as well. There's a couple more gremlins, that octopus lady from before, a big flying bug with a bunch of eyes who we've seen in previous seasons, and this smoking pink fuzzy thing. Also another look at the Sasquatch we saw back in season 2. The main monster we see at the Complaints Department is this big smiley tentacle lady who of course points Nick to the head of the department and maybe the head of human resources in general, who is of course real life Nick Kroll.
Oh yeah, I know. It's a very big swing.
Now, if you don't know, Nick Kroll co-created the series, and Nick Birch is basically just the child version of Nick Kroll. The writers and creators are all working through their childhood stuff with the show. Plus, he does the voice of Nick, Rick, Steve, and Maury.
I thought I was Will Arnett.
Yeah, a lot of people think that.
I guess this also makes Nick Kroll a human resources monster. He seems to run the entire operation for some reason, but we also get a few new background monsters here seen flying past the window behind him, including Falcor from the Neverending Story. Finally, we've got a solid connection between these franchises, exactly what we've all been waiting for. The extended Big Mouth universe now contains both Office Space and the Neverending Story. We also see a coffee drinking bug, something in a UFO, a goose in a top hat, all cruising by the window. Then before the crew leaves HR, as the two Nicks look down on their friends, we see this weird sort of butthole rhino. Not sure how to describe that guy. And that is every monster we see in Big Mouth Season 5. I'm pretty sure. Let me know if I forgot anything, but I think I got them all. All right, well, I guess that's it. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this year's monster breakdown and probably expect the Human Resources spinoff sometime before Season 6, though I said that last year we should expect it before Season 5, so I clearly don't know what I'm talking about. Peace.
Johnny!
Two cellos.